Imagine you get a 911 call. Someone's been shot. The woman on the line, she's confessing, but at the same time, she's swearing it was all just a terrible, tragic accident. The only problem is, the evidence, well, it starts to tell a completely different story. So let's get right into this really complex and tragic mystery. All right, so let's set the scene. The date is August 1st, 2018. An emergency call suddenly comes in from a home on Sunny Brook Drive. And what the dispatcher heard wasn't just a call for help. It was the start of a puzzle that would leave investigators completely stumped.
That's it. Those were the first chilling words out of Katherine Higden's mouth. In a total state of panic, she's on the phone confessing to shooting her long-term boyfriend, Stephen Freeman. And this is all happening before police have even arrived.
I mean, that seems pretty cut and dry, right? A confession? But here's the thing. As she's sobbing on the phone, she keeps saying it over and over again. It was an accident. And that right there sets up the central question that this entire case is going to hinge on. Was this just a tragic mistake, or was it something much, much darker?
So when investigators finally get to the house, what they see inside just doesn't line up with this simple accident story. Not at all. The physical evidence, it starts to paint a very different picture, one of chaos and conflict.
Police walk into this quiet suburban home, and there, on a mattress in the living room, is 23-year-old Stephen Freeman. He's unresponsive. Katherine Higden is right there, hovering over him, completely distraught as officers rush in to try and render aid.
Right away, investigators are seeing major red flags. This didn't look like a simple accident. I'm talking food was scattered all over the floor. Furniture was in complete disarray. The room looked like a full-blown struggle had happened right before the gunshot. And that's a huge detail for Higden to have left out of her 911 call.
And for Lieutenant Chris Wilson, the first investigator on the scene, this was the moment everything shifted. The state of that room was a massive, blinking red light. He knew right then and there that he might not be responding to a tragic accident, but actually investigating a homicide.
Now let's talk about maybe the most critical piece of evidence in this whole thing, the weapon itself. A Glock 43 handgun was recovered at the scene. And you know, the way this gun is built, it would become a silent but very powerful witness against Higden's story. So this was Higden's claim. She told the police she was absolutely stunned the gun fired. She said they never kept their guns with a round in the chamber, and that this one just, well, it just went off.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the crucial technical detail. A Glock is a semi-automatic pistol, and it's loaded with safety features. Any firearms expert will tell you, you can't just bump it or drop it and make it fire. No way. For a Glock to go off, the trigger must be pulled. Period.
So this created a huge conflict for investigators. On one side, you have Higden claiming it was a total freak accident. And on the other, you have the simple, unchangeable mechanics of the gun itself, which basically says, nope, somebody had to deliberately pull this trigger. And here's the detail that made her claim of an accident even harder for police to believe. Higden wasn't just familiar with guns, she sold them for a living at a sporting goods store. She'd actually had formal training on firearms safety. A coworker even told police she used to brag about how much she knew about guns.
But to really understand the full tragedy here, we have to look beyond the evidence for a second and talk about the relationship itself. Because behind all the chaos of that night was what appeared to be a really stable, loving partnership.
Yeah, this wasn't some new, volatile romance. They'd been together for 7 years. 7! A relationship that started back when they were just teenagers in high school. They literally grew up together and had built a life, which just makes this violent end to their story all the more shocking. So, let's talk about Stephen Freeman. By all accounts, he was just a sweet, easygoing guy. His friends said he never really stressed about anything. He loved hunting and fishing, he worked hard repairing roofs, and he was incredibly close with his family, especially his mom. This simple line, from a note he wrote to his mother, became this treasured, heartbreaking memory for his family. It just speaks to the kind of person he was, loving, thoughtful, and deeply connected to the people he cared about. This was the man who lost his life on that mattress.
And to make the whole story even more complicated, Higden wasn't some outsider. Stephen's mother said she thought of her like a daughter. All of his friends had welcomed her into their circle. From all outward appearances, they were a happy, totally integrated couple.
So you take all of this, the chaotic scene, the forensic evidence, the long-term relationship, and it all leads to one final question that had to be answered by the courts. So let's look at the two competing narratives that were presented.
Okay, on one side you have the defense. They argued this was a horrific, unintentional accident between two people who loved each other. Higden's tearful claim, "I never wanted to hurt him," was the whole foundation of their case. The prosecution, though, they pointed to the signs of a fight, the mechanics of the gun, and they argued she lost control and she pulled the trigger.
And that's really where this whole thing leaves us. You have a 7-year romance that ends in a flash of violence, a chaotic crime scene that seems to suggest a fight, a trained gun handler who claims she was totally ignorant about the weapon, and it all comes down to one single pull of a trigger. The question for the jury, and for us now, remains, was it a moment of tragic carelessness, or was it a moment of uncontrollable rage?